Subject remains conscious, the medical officer noted, his 3 eyelids blinking out of sync as he hovered over the restrained human. Despite blood loss, multiple contusions, and 3 plasma burns, the human grinned. Teeth, flat, white, far too many of them. That all you got? Commander Threx shifted uncomfortably. Sedation didn't work? The medic twitched. We used 3 doses, standard for Krail warriors. And the human leaned forward in his restraints, veins bulging. Feel great, actually. That's when the whisper began to circulate through the fleet. Humans, small, pink, seemingly fragile bipeds, weren't right. Their biology didn't follow the rules. Every other species on the Galactic Accord followed the same stress response model: flight freeze, or at best, coordinated retreat. Humans didn't. Threaten a human, and they became something else. 2 cycles prior, a scouting squad cornered one in a cave on Harkos V. Standard compliance procedure: light pressure, stun fields, 0 lethal intent. It should have passed out. Instead, it screamed, bit through its own restraints, and tackled the unit commander, bit his shoulder with its teeth. Who even bites anymore? The report was dismissed as exaggeration until it happened again. Then 23 more times. Patterns emerged. Heart rate spiking into dangerous territory. Pupils dilated. Blood pressure through the roof. Adrenal glands firing like artillery. Worse, it was all internal. No stims. No enhancements. Just raw, organic insanity. The humans were chemically fighting themselves to fight harder. The term combat cocktail became slang among Accord troops. A mix of adrenaline, dopamine, norepinephrine, cortisol, and, somehow, painkillers. Self-manufactured and released in combat situations. The human body didn't panic. It optimized. It wasn't training. Civilians did it. A farmer on Earthes 2 punched through a wall during evacuation and dragged 3 soldiers to safety. No armor, just flannel, fury, and an overclocked endocrine system. The soldier he saved asked what drugs he was on. The man blinked and said, "Coffee," in panic. A field test was conducted. 1 human volunteer. 10 simulated stress environments, no weapons. Observers were confident. By test 5, the human had broken the drone system, scavenged shrapnel into throwing knives, and used a heating duct to disable the simulation. Pulse? Elevated. Hormone levels? Lethal for any other species. Scientist Prime Groltic requested deeper biological analysis. That's when they found it. Human cells possess adaptive hormone receptors, meaning their response scales with stress. Put a human in danger, and its body doesn't just respond. It learns, gets better at being in danger. Worst of all, it enjoys it. Scans showed increasing dopamine levels during fights, even under mortal threat. Some even laughed while bleeding. Groltic personally interviewed 1 soldier with a shattered femur. The human chuckled through clenched teeth. That all you broke? Attempts to reproduce the phenomenon failed catastrophically. The Zarn tried duplicating human hormone patterns in their own troops. The first subjects developed seizures. The second batch burst capillaries. 1 just started singing and wouldn't stop. Not in a language, just singing. It was clear. The human reaction wasn't a stimulant. It was a survival protocol, evolved through endless environmental abuse. Acid rain, apex predators, diseases that mutated mid-incubation. Their own planet forged them into biochemical berserkers. Commander Threx watched another recording, this one from the siege of Eridani Outpost. The humans were cornered, supplies gone, no backup. Heat readings showed bodies at peak exhaustion. Then it started. 1 corporal ripped off his own shirt, tied a makeshift tourniquet, screamed something about grandma's frying pan, and charged. The rest followed, yelling incoherently, moving faster than their vitals should have allowed. They fought with pipes, bricks, their own helmets. 6 of them held off a battalion. The alien troops reported incoherent howling, and the phrase, "get some," repeated far too many times. Only 2 humans survived, both unconscious for 40 hours. Upon waking, 1 asked for a cheeseburger. The other flexed and said, "Did we win?" The answer, yes. High Command issued a memo. Do not provoke human forces unless absolutely necessary. Do not surround them. Do not isolate individuals. Avoid close quarters. Avoid prolonged engagements. Most importantly, never assume they're down. If their eyes are open, they're not finished. If their eyes are closed, they might just be resting. Field officers laughed until the Battle of Foros Ridge. 30 humans, surrounded, outnumbered 20-1. Artillery disabled. Communications jammed. The last transmission? Laughter, followed by the phrase, "Let's crank it up." Only one human survived. Medical team reports found cortisol levels at 10 times safe limits. Bones cracked from internal pressure. Heart rate at 230 BPM. They asked how he was alive. His response, "I got mad." They called it rage mode. Not an official term, but it stuck. No augmentation, no external trigger, just biology and overdrive. Alien researchers theorized this was not a bug in their system. It was a feature, a final failsafe built from millennia of running from lions, wading through diseases, and clubbing each other over firewood. Humanity wasn't engineered for stability. It was engineered for escalation. A small joke circulated among soldiers. You can scare Glarn. You can startle a Vesk. But if you threaten a human, congratulations, you just gave them a power-up. The worst part? The humans didn't know it either. Most assumed it was adrenaline. They had no idea their bodies were going beyond that, mixing hormones in unique ratios, possibly even generating temporary neurochemical states unknown to other life forms. Researchers coined it endo-combat syndrome. Humans called it going beast mode. But it wasn't just soldiers. Civilians triggered it too. A mother lifted a ground transport off her child. A teacher beat 3 armed pirates with a desk leg. A bartender choked out a bounty hunter with an apron strap. Their own biology was weaponizing itself in real time. That's when the fear really started. Aliens weren't afraid of human weapons anymore. They were afraid of humans. Because no matter the tech gap, no matter the odds, once the stress hit, once the switch flipped, the fight was no longer tactical. It was personal. Commander Threx turned back to the restrained human, still awake, still smiling. "I assume," Threx said slowly, "you're experiencing no pain?" The human tilted his head, blood still drying on his face. "Oh, I'm in agony, but I felt worse. Ever step on a Lego?" The translator stalled. "What is a Lego?" The human's smile widened. "I hope you never find out." Threx left the room and ordered the retreat, not from the system, from Earth. The order to retreat from Earth was not issued lightly. It was historic, humiliating, and, above all, wise. The Galactic Accord didn't retreat often, especially not from species it once listed as pre-warp primitives. But Earth was a battlefield. It was a biological trap with polite coffee shops on the surface and hell hiding beneath every nervous system. Unfortunately, not everyone got the memo in time. The Scorvani Empire, proud and perpetually overcompensating, saw Earth's withdrawal as an opportunity. They weren't afraid. Their warriors had 4 arms, natural armor, and military chants that could shatter glass. And like all overconfident species with no experience in galactic wars involving humans, they made the classic mistake. They landed first and asked questions later. Troop carriers darkened the sky over Melbourne. The humans, having dealt with giant spiders, deadly jellyfish, and a climate that hated everything alive, watched them descend and said, "Ah, that's new." Within 30 minutes, the invaders stormed a football stadium. They were met by a middle-aged man named Paul. He was shirtless. He was barefoot. He was holding a can of beer and a garden rake. Paul didn't win the fight. He didn't need to. He just bought enough time for the neighborhood to show up. By the time the Scorvani secured the area, they'd been bitten, kicked, stabbed with umbrellas, and one of them reported being emotionally destabilized by a verbal threat involving your mom and a bin chicken. The medical analysis was worse. These humans, none of whom were military, displayed elevated levels of epinephrine and dopamine that would liquefy most species. They fought like they'd had combat training, but none had. One of them, When asked later why he charged a 6-foot lizard with plasma rifles, simply said, "Wasn't gonna let M touch me, dog." Back at Scorvani Command, the data made no sense. "These are untrained civilians," the analyst insisted. "No cybernetic implants, no combat suits." Then how did they override our suppressor fields? They didn't override them. They ignored them. Suppressor fields disrupt most nervous systems, causing disorientation or collapse. Humans, apparently, treated the field like a mild hangover. In fact, in one field recording, a human literally said, "Feels like a Sunday morning," while crawling under laser fire. The Scorvani doubled down, sending in elite units with full tactical gear and support drones. It didn't help, because by then, Earth's military had mobilized, and Earth's military, when under pressure, activated something far worse than a coordinated response. It activated petty vengeance. A human tank commander was overheard yelling, "They landed on Australia, mate." That's like poking a sleeping croc with a barbecue fork. Another squad deployed to North America found themselves facing what appeared to be an under-equipped resistance cell in a grocery store. No uniforms, just anger, canned goods, and baseball bats. The soldiers advanced cautiously until a shopping cart came flying out an aisle, followed by a scream of, "We have a high ground, aisle 9. It wasn't war. It was chaos with caffeine. And the hormone levels? Still rising. Researchers noticed a terrifying trend. The longer the conflict went on, the more effective the humans became. Not due to tactics, but biology. They were adapting under pressure, refining their internal chemical warfare, and unknowingly creating a feedback loop of stress and performance. One scientist from the Jarna Institute proposed a theory. Human resilience is reactive, not proactive. Their true strength only manifests after they've been hurt. It was tested unintentionally during the Battle of Sao Paulo. A human operative was critically injured, losing an arm to plasma fire. Instead of retreating, he tied off the stump with part of his shirt, screamed something about "not today," and proceeded to headbutt 3 enemy soldiers into unconsciousness. He later claimed not to remember the event. Medical scans showed surges of chemicals previously undocumented, some acting like opioids, others enhancing oxygen absorption. "You're telling me?" one general asked, staring at the report. "He became more dangerous after losing a limb?" "Yes," replied the doctor, deadpan. "It seems the injury triggered what we're calling a desperation cascade. Essentially, his body dumped every available hormone into his bloodstream and stopped caring about the consequences." "What consequences?" The doctor pointed at the line labeled heart rate. 267 BPM. He should have died. But he didn't. "No," the doctor admitted, blinking slowly. "He won." This was a turning point, not because the humans were unbeatable, but because they refused to follow logical limits. Galactic forces were built around efficiency, thresholds, and sustainable warfare. But humans burned a candle from both ends, poured jet fuel on the wick, and danced in the fire. One Accord officer famously said, "Fighting humans is like trying to drown a fish that's learning to breathe lava." The biological data was clear. Humans didn't just produce combat drugs when threatened, they evolved in real time. Each engagement improved their resilience. Pain was a performance enhancer. Fear was fuel. Exhaustion was optional. Worse still, it was contagious. Human squad leaders often shouted motivational obscenities, causing nearby humans to spike in endocrine activity. One researcher concluded that swearing was possibly a tactical hormone amplifier. Yes, really. And humor. Humor was a coping mechanism that boosted morale and reduced perceived pain. During a firefight in Glasgow, one human was hit in the leg and immediately yelled, "I've been shot in me spicy kneecap," and kept shooting while laughing. To galactic minds, this was unthinkable. To humans, it was Tuesday. The final straw came during the failed siege of New Tokyo. The invaders set up an encirclement, cut off power, water, and food. Standard protocol. Wait and wear down resistance. It didn't work. The humans within the zone grew stronger. Their hormone cycles aligned. Their reactions became faster. One unit leader was seen running across a wall, while screaming parkour and tossing explosives like they were party favors. When reinforcement arrived for the aliens, they found their forward units in disarray, being held hostage by what they described as screaming primates with homemade weapons and zero fear. The retreat was swift and unanimous. One captured alien, barely conscious, whispered, "We thought we were attacking a species. We attacked a reaction." The Accord officially declared Earth a red zone, engagement forbidden, observation only. They began calling humans biological apex predators and updated their survival manuals. Page 1 now reads, "If a human is calm, proceed with caution. If a human is angry, run. If a human starts laughing, prepare your will." And somewhere far away, in a dark chamber of some forgotten research lab, an alien scientist shudders as he watches footage of a teenage human breaking a board with his head and shouting, "Let's duo." The label on the footage reads, "Unprovoked, voluntary, happy," and that terrifies them most of all. It didn't take long for the galactic scientific community to realize something was very wrong with the baseline assumptions about humanity. Every new report made things worse. The humans weren't just enduring, they were accelerating. Their stress response wasn't flawed to be treated. It was a feature built for war. Even worse, their combat drugs weren't lab-made. They were self-manufactured on demand by raw evolutionary overkill. The stuff they secreted under pressure made synthesized combat enhancers look like chamomile tea. The Vishari Collective tried a non-invasive approach. Capture and contain. They deployed neurodampening fields and empathy inhibitors, assuming that removing emotional triggers would shut down the human combat response. They captured 3 humans from a rural area in Montana, 2 males and 1 female. Farmers, judging by clothing and calloused hands. They didn't resist. At first, for 12 hours, they were studied in silence. No aggression, no stress indicators, just steady heart rates and suspicious glares. Then one of the Vishari researchers made a rookie mistake. He removed the restraints from a female's wrist, thinking it a sign of trust. She smiled, not a warm smile, a quiet, amused smile, like she just remembered where she left her crowbar. The next 47 seconds were an educational bloodbath. The restraints were used as garrotes. The neurodampeners became blunt weapons. The last security drone caught a shaky, awful image of one of the males headbutting a reinforced door until it snapped open. They weren't fighting to escape. They were expressing disappointment. The female later explained, once diplomatic channels begged for mercy, that you can't kidnap ranch folk and expect them not to take offense. When asked what finally made her act, she replied, "They touched my hat." More biochemical data poured in. Human combat drugs included compounds that suppressed pain, accelerated muscle repair, heightened sensory input, and inexplicably increased their sense of humor. No other species in recorded history laughed more during active combat scenarios. In one infamous battle on the Martian frontier, a human special ops unit held a forward position against 3 times their number. Mid-fight, someone on the human comm said, "We're fine. This is just cardio with bullets." They laughed, hard, and then counterattacked. The enemy, unnerved by what they assumed was a psychotic breakdown, fell back. They weren't wrong. But Earth wasn't just exporting elite soldiers. It was exporting culture through sheer, unkillable spirit. Take the Battle of Olive Prime. The planetary defense grid had failed. The aliens were closing in, certain of victory. A human auxiliary force was stationed there, low-priority backup, mostly civilian techs with minimal weapons. The lead invader broadcast a surrender demand. The reply? A live-stream video of a dozen humans in dirty combat gear, dancing in sync to 1980s music, holding signs that read, "Come get some," and "free hugs" with explosives. The assault halted. The commanding officer demanded clarification. What were they doing? Psych ops? Distraction? Ritual? No, they were just bored waiting. The fight that followed was a psychological catastrophe. Human units launched from tunnels, surfed on improvised boards, and attacked while quoting obscure movies. One used a sharpened spatula. Another dual-wielded frying pans. But the worst part? They didn't care that they were outnumbered. They treated it as a motivational feature. One combat medic later remarked, "If we're not the underdogs, we get lazy." One alien soldier tried to surrender mid-fight and was told, "You're not getting out of cardio that easy, buddy," before being politely knocked unconscious. Galactic analysts began calling it the Earth effect. The theory: proximity to human conflict creates disproportionate morale failures in opposing forces. Not because humans fight harder, but because they fight happier. Emotionally stable enemy troops broke down under the pressure of humor, chaos, and reckless optimism. One general requested backup because the humans were making jokes while they bled. Another report described a human soldier who, while pinned under rubble, shouted, "Bet you 5 credits I can still throw a grenade farther than you." He won the bet with one working arm. Back on Earth, scientists finally got involved, not to stop the process, to study it. Combat endocrinology became a new field. Humans voluntarily enrolled in STEM response tests, which mostly involved terrifying them in creative ways and measuring what came out the other end. Results were consistent. Fear produced courage. Pain produced rage. Despair produced creativity. One subject, when cornered in a simulated cave collapse, constructed an air filtration system out of his sock, a wristwatch, and chewing gum. When asked why, he said, "I saw it in a MacGyver rerun." Human civilians, under duress, became guerrilla warriors, not because of training, but because of stubborn refusal to die politely. One alien document now listed Earth as biologically hostile to sustained invasion due to unpredictable chemical reactions under threat conditions. A human general summarized the findings best. You don't win against humans by scaring them. That just gives us ideas. Even Earth's animals weren't exempt. A Scorvani patrol once attempted to abduct a small dog during recon. The dog fought back. So did its owner, and the mailman, and 3 nearby joggers, and a 72-year-old woman with a broom. The patrol didn't return. Their ship was found in a tree. No survivors. A note was attached to the hull. It read, "Next time, pet him first." By this point, galactic consensus was unified. Earth was not to be provoked, ever. Their combat state wasn't induced. It was unleashed, like a pressure valve that, when cracked, exploded with caffeine, fire, and oddly cheerful violence. But there were whispers, unconfirmed reports of humans improving under pressure, that their bodies weren't just reacting to threats. They were learning from them, altering their chemistry based on what almost killed them. A human that nearly drowned became amphibious under stress. Another that suffered extreme cold developed spontaneous heat resistance during panic. A pilot with severe burns gained temporary immunity to plasma-based weapons after re-entering combat. The pattern was unmistakable. Humans were evolving on the fly. Literally once. A paratrooper's chute failed during a drop. She survived the impact with shattered legs, and then crawled for a full mile to warn her unit of an ambush. The medical report said her bloodstream was essentially marinating in pure combat stimulant. She shouldn't have been alive. She was. And when asked how she crawled a mile, her response was, "I didn't want to die tired." That line was quoted on recruitment posters across Earth, and feared in 10,000 alien languages. Humanity wasn't a species. It was a biological contingency plan. For war. For survival. For fun, apparently. And the galaxy had finally realized, when you threaten humans, you're not starting a fight. You're giving them permission. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session for the 3rd time in a solar week. This time, there were no grand speeches, no bureaucratic posturing, just a quiet, unified terror of civilizations that had finally seen the unfiltered truth of Earth. They weren't afraid of humanity's weapons. They were afraid of what humans became when the lights went out. The last encounter report from the Trelithai Scouting Corps said it best. "We fired suppression round into the human formation." They screamed. We celebrated. Then they charged, screaming louder and laughing. One council member, a veteran of 3 expansion wars, whispered, "We've made a terrible mistake." Another simply resigned, citing emotional indigestion caused by excessive human proximity. Efforts to classify humanity on the standard threat spectrum failed. The scale didn't go high enough. They had to create a new designation, variable catastrophe. Earth responded by printing T-shirts with that phrase. In pink, diplomats tried to salvage relations. They offered peace treaties, trade deals, even cultural exchanges. Humans accepted all of it, with a grin that made half the ambassadors request transfers. One ambassador said afterward, "They smile like apex predators pretending to be house pets." One confused civilization, the Orek-Vok, tried to reverse engineer the human combat effect. They took volunteers, copied their stress triggers, simulated adrenaline conditions, even mimicked Earth's bizarre social rituals, including something called Monday. They lost 6 volunteers. 2 developed addiction to sarcasm. One began lifting weights and yelling, "Let's go," at everything. The program was canceled after an Orek-Vok soldier, while under induced stress, drop-kicked a vending machine and quoted an Earth phrase, "Pain is weakness leaving the body." Nobody knew what it meant, but it sounded like a threat. Meanwhile, the humans kept evolving. Biological scans began to show anomalies. Stress-reinforced nerve clusters, reactive hormone glands, and something new, what scientists termed anticipatory adaptation. Humans didn't just respond to threats anymore. They prepared for them before they arrived. One soldier, when asked how he knew an ambush was coming, replied, "I got that weird itch on the back of my neck." Always means trouble. The ambush happened 46 seconds later. They called it combat intuition. Others called it spooky human nonsense. Earth called it Tuesday. Nowhere was a terror more concentrated than in the failed invasion of Terran Outpost Data 9, a barren moon base used primarily for training. When the Grunvac Armada struck, they expected an easy target. They landed troops, activated jammers, blocked all escape routes. The humans inside? Recruits. Fresh, barely combat rated. It didn't matter. The recruits held the base for 6 days with nothing but scrap metal, food rations, and spite. They converted a cafeteria into a trap hall, complete with electrified lasagna trays. One private used a coffee machine as a proximity sensor. By day 4, the Grunvac began hallucinating. Psych scans revealed the humans hadn't just fought. They'd narrated the fight in real time, like action movie heroes with running commentary. The aliens didn't know whether they were being attacked or auditioned for a sitcom. One of the survivors described hearing humans shout, "You picked the wrong moon, buddy." Then came the counteroffensive. The recruits, half-injured, low on supplies, stormed the Grunvac forward base, armed with nothing but sharpened broom handles and what appeared to be explosive potatoes. One human tackled a Grunvac commander while humming the theme to an old spy movie. The commander requested asylum. On Earth, the Council begged Earth to explain. They sent a data packet titled, "Stress Response and the Art of Overreaction." It contained footage of humans lifting cars to save children, charging into burning buildings for strangers, and forming spontaneous rescue teams in disasters, without orders, without command, just instinct. It ended with a single quote, "We don't rise to the occasion, we rise above it." The message was clear. Humans didn't need war. They didn't crave violence. But if you gave them either, they wouldn't run. They'd transform. Alien war strategists began incorporating human factors into simulations. They quickly discovered a universal constant. Any scenario with more than 3 humans involved had a 92% chance of becoming unpredictable and a 78% chance of becoming outright ridiculous. No plan survived contact with Earth. One famous incident involved a pirate cartel hijacking a Terran cargo ship. Standard procedure. Easy prey. Except the crew was composed entirely of retired veterans, an amateur comedian, and a chef with a meat cleaver collection. They took back the ship using a fire suppression system, bad puns, and what they called maximum kitchen aggression. The leader's last recorded words were, "Why is the chef smiling?" The Terran government offered no retaliation. They just renamed the vessel the Bannerhawk and sent it back into service, with a plaque that read, "This ship is armed with wit and cutlery." Galactic blacklists expanded. Earth colonies ships Even tourist outposts were marked as engaged with extreme caution. One planetary governor banned Earth entertainment imports after several soldiers went AWOL to find themselves, inspired by human philosophy, specifically something called the Rocky Montage. Even attempts to calm humans backfired. One peace delegation offered Earthlings a stress-reducing hormone derived from the gentle flun herb. The humans drank it, called it kind of like tea, and then used the leftover leaves to patch up a reactor leak. Apparently, they mixed it with duct tape. Nobody knows why it worked. At some point, the galaxy stopped asking what humans were and started asking how. How could one species turn adrenaline into laughter? How did fear become strength? How could pain, panic, and exhaustion become tools in their hands? One theory suggested humans had evolved around catastrophe, that their planet, violent, unstable, full of predators and ice ages and volcanoes, had molded them into beings who didn't fear chaos. They adapted to it. One final experiment proved it. The Galactic Academy invited a group of humans to a controlled stress simulation, an elaborate, full-immersion crisis meant to test psychological breakdown. Earth sent 12 volunteers. Scientists observed closely, eager to witness the infamous reaction. 5 minutes in, the humans split into two teams. One began fortifying a fake shelter. The other made jokes about how it felt like summer camp. They developed a rescue plan, assigned roles, built a water filtration system out of socks, and started grilling fake rations for fun. By hour 3, they decorated the walls with sarcastic motivational posters. By hour 6, they were singing. The simulation was shut down, not because the humans failed, because the scientists cracked. One observer suffered a full existential crisis after watching a human laugh during a simulated meteor strike and say, "At least the traffic will be light." The final report was simple. Humanity's greatest weapon is not strength. It's not technology. It's not even adaptation. It's a refusal to break when everything else does. Now, the galaxy watches Earth with the wary respect given to an unstable star. Not malevolent, but capable of greatness and destruction with equal ease. A species that turns fear into power, pain into progress, and pressure into purpose. And when they're threatened, truly threatened, they don't run. They grin. Because inside every human there's a dormant storm. And all it takes is a reason